Welcome back to another episode where we are going to look at some of the results from the MVPs that we recently launched, especially looking into the agricultural sector. Our last two builds, MVP builds, were specifically launched in those sectors. And if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, just head up over on our YouTube channel. You'll see the two MVPs there that we launched there, and it's quite interesting. It's quite amazing, and it's solving good or not good problems. I guess there's nothing like a good problem, but real problems out there. And I want to start off by saying one thing. There's a lot of confusion around the term MVP. So MVP, as you might know, because if you just go to Google, you'll surely see what it refers to. It refers to a minimum viable product. Now, the term itself shouldn't be confusing. I put it like this. I put it very simple. An MVP is used because, generally speaking, every single person adopts and uses an MVP differently. So I want you to see it as follows, just to kind of like break that mindset. MVP, when we talk about it, we're talking about designing an automation or system or operating system that, generally speaking, handles all the affairs in one dashboard. So see an MVP as your personal app or your personal website or your personal project management tool or your personal consolidated infrastructure that handles all the back-end logic, all the various subscriptions that you have into one place so that you effectively can manage your business effectively, right? So don't get too fixated about the terminology of MVP. MVP is just basically your personal solution that is built for you. We use the term MVP because each company has a different tool or different operating system that needs to feature in different ways. So to coin it just as an app or just as a website will be completely ineffective, inaccurate, and that's why we use that term. So don't get too fixated about this. The other thing that I said in every single video is don't get fixated on the idea that MVP or that product showcase that we're doing needs to solve your personal problems. Now, you might be in agri and this video would make a lot more sense, the same with the previous product showcases, but you'll see that we've built product showcases in the restaurant industry, in operations, in sales, in tech, in various things. So the purpose why we do product showcases is not to motivate you to buy into that product, because it's not plug and play. It's unique solutions for unique clients in their environment. And that's exactly what an MVP should do. It shouldn't be a plug and play that solves everyone's issues. Why? Because your product is unique, your company is unique, your operations team is unique, what you do is unique. So the purpose of an MVP is to build a unique system that is uniquely unique to you. And I kind of hope that makes sense. So that's just coining on or expanding on the coining term of what an MVP is. So don't get too worried about that. Just think about it as your own product or own solution to your business problem, or it might not even be a known problem. But let's jump straight into a specific one. And so we launched two MVPs recently. We launched one both in the agricultural sector, one that's a general farm OS for a specific client, and then one that is a cattle management and auction management system for a completely different client. Now, these two products or MVPs are very early on adoption, meaning the one is only being used for the last 4 months now, and the other one for the last 2 months. So it's very new, but we run metrics on these type of systems to see truly what kind of like success measures it brings into a business. Now, we run this results on or metrics on the actual systems, and then obviously ask for surveys back from the clients and their experiences to help them fix it and everything like that to measure the success. And then now we've done exactly that. We've done our first round of metrics and our first round of product reviews and surveys from that, so that we on our side can, assist to improve what needs to be improved, but also measure the success rates thereof. And that's what we're going to showcase today. So we're going to showcase exactly how effective those two systems are, and then just basically share that with you. So I'm going to share a couple of things, and I just want you to sit in their shoes, kind of like not only your shoes, but also be open-minded on how this MVP or similar MVPs, dedicated, tailored in your business, can really change a lot of things, because I love the results that came in, and those are the ones that I want to share. So the first thing before I start showing you a couple of things like the results and the metrics and everything that we run is I want to talk about the importance of AI adoption in a business. Now, a lot of MVPs, or all of our MVPs, are very tech friendly and very AI natively. Now, you might think, oh my goodness, like I've had it with all this AI. What's this about ChatGPT and Claude and everything like that? And maybe it's to an extent some of the things you can do yourself. I have done a separate video, so please go check up on YouTube on a separate video on how you should adopt AI in your business and the kind of things that you should be careful for, because other people are just adopting it in a very irresponsible, low result, AI slop, that's the term that they use, kind of way. So be mindful on that and just go check out that video as well. So we did 2 MVPs. We did one both in the agri space. I just want to go ahead and say that. Both in the agri space, both in early adoption, the one was obviously Farm OS and the other one was Cattle OS, which is in the cattle management, but also they wanted to bring in the auction management type of solution or system in the same solution. And whenever we build an MVP for a client, this is very important to remember. The client comes with 2 intended goals or 2 intentions to the table, if I want to put it like that. The first one is obviously they want to free up their time, because that's what an MVP should do. It should free up time so that you can use it more effectively. And then obviously the second one is they want to solve business problems, right? The businesses that they face, we start with a complete audit phase. I explain more in that AI adoption video that I explained. But in essence, the foundation is exactly the same. Businesses want to save time, want to solve business problems, real business problems, and want to consolidate everything into one business system for them. That's how the client measures the success of any MVP or product that we build. However, we hold ourselves responsible, or rather accountable, to a much different, and I won't say higher standard, but it is a standard that the client doesn't keep us responsible or accountable for. It's one that we put ourselves to, right? And yeah, that at the end of the day it's our internal metric system that we built. So each MVP has got a very unique, very different, very tailored metric system that we build in, because we want to see and measure how effective, how great this MVP is working for this. So the client would obviously just look at it from time and problem, but we've got a whole list of different metrics that we say, no. From XCAP side of point of view, we want to measure a lot of different things, because this product needs to be kind of like strengthen and keep on innovating over time. And it might be something that the client is not always looking for, but what we are actually looking for. There's definitely the intended design, which is why the product was developed, and that's to fill the client's need, versus the internal metric standard. It's basically what the consumer or client measures as success versus what we measure as success, right? So that's the kind of differences. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to quickly just run you through the different metrics that we ran for each of these 2 products to just show you the in-depth, behind the scenes, valuable data that we collect and steward and manage to see if this is truly innovative in a business operational and business scaling side of things. And I'm going to show you that metrics. And then I'm just going to jump into a kind of like very informal and maybe a bit of reckless financial modeling. But I just want to go through the kind of like effect that this business has. I'm looking at one of the businesses and the effect that it has on their time, their management, their finances, and kind of like just put you in a position to follow along on the journey. It is not actually based on their finances, although the results and metrics are. So there's a lot of assumptions that I can't say that that's their actual finances, but I'll clarify along the way and really just hope it makes sense. Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen exactly with that. And the first thing that I'm going to run through here while looking at the screen is obviously this is the metrics report. A lot of you guys may have seen this. We've sent it over on our WhatsApp, our emails, our social media, and everything. But these are the metrics that is specifically related to Farm OS and then Cattle OS. So I'm not going to read through everything. If you want this report, you can just email me or message me and I'll send it straight through to you. But it does say, I'm just going to read this, the numbers we run behind the scenes to test whether a custom operating system is actually working in adoption and in action. Anyone can claim a system saves time, but we measure it. This is the framework we hold our own builds to, which obviously is unique to every single build. And the metrics each operation is judged against and what the first months of adoptions look like. So we built more than 30 metrics in the back end. This is based on 2 operating systems, and then obviously the one product is 4 months live in adoption and the other one 2 months live in adoption. If you've got any questions, please just write them in the comments on our videos and we'll gladly just answer them for you, right? We said if we can't measure it, we don't claim it. I'm not going to read through everything like that. I just want to go straight into just going to hide this. Just go straight into the various things. So when we look at Farm OS, you can see there's a couple of metrics. So just looking at the Farm OS one, we looked at active subscriptions and seats. How we measure it, why it matters, like proofs of sprawl being replaced. We want to replace a lot of unnecessary services, subscriptions, tools, things that's just messy. And we want to bring everything like that into one place, right? But then we look at the monthly software spend, admin hours per week, month-end close, financial reconciliation, management pack build time, double capture events, and decision latency, meaning how fast a decision is made. Double capture events, meaning if you need to capture the same data at specific or different places rather, which is the same data, we want to just take that away because it's unnecessary time and build that into the MVP. And all of those things. So as you can see, we slightly look at things differently because the manager and the owner is obviously measuring it as it's freeing up its own time and solving the problems, meaning why the build was done in the first place. But these are the minor things that we measure to make sure that this is actually an effective thing. So that's the first thing that Farm OS is judged against. We continue with Farm OS from a compliance point of view. Our metrics that we run is obviously an audit pack assembly time, block to buyer trace time, price achieved versus the benchmark, cost per hectare versus the profit per block, unplanned machine downtime, payroll hours and error count, task completion and ownership, adoption and staff sentiment. And it's very important for us to have these metrics, and I'll show you exactly why that is from a financial point of view. The second one is when we looked at Cattle OS, the type of things that we measured there was obviously the stock count variance, herd reconciliation hours, stock losses, which is mostly theft and predation, time to full animal history, treatment and vaccination compliance, withdrawal period violations, and the average daily gain, the ADG, is something that we measured as well. And then we looked at the herd economics, which is your cost per kg on live weight, your feed and lick cost per head per day, your vet cost per head, your price achieved versus the benchmark, your carcass classification spread, weaning percentage, and intercalving period, and your grazing pressure and camp rotation. Those are kind of the things that's very important for us to make sure that the system that you build is actually speaking to it. So let's look at something very specific, and then I'm going to show you how that looks like, in a direct financial implication. Now, this is 4 months in from Farm OS that I'm going to use as an example. Today, I'm not going to go through the financials of the cattle operating system, but it's basically done on the same principle. And these are the metrics that we started measuring. And from that measuring, we had a baseline on the previous averages that was obviously given to us by not the client. And then we've got the months of operations, and within that month of operations, what is the change? And we look at the change percentage. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to mention straight up right here. A lot of these things are costs. So cost is actually, well, not actually, as you know, it's a direct measurable saving. It's usually the foundational line that people measure against to say, the product that I bought, this MVP that we designed, the cost that it did, how much is it saving me, and comparing those two head by head, is it worth it? Is it seen as an investment? But there's other things that you need to consider as well. There's things like the actual cost that we can see versus opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is where time comes in, because opportunity cost means that if I free up my time or relieve a couple of resources or anything, I'm in a position to either use my time more effectively in my business, or I can free up my time. And when I say my time, my team's time, to collectively contribute towards scaling the business or for additional businesses to bring into the system. Now, let me give you a stupid idea or stupid example, not a stupid idea. I don't like giving stupid ideas. Let me give you an example on that. So let's say, for example, an admin person or an admin team, not looking at an admin person, but it can be your financial captures, your data captures, your invoicing team, whatever your company has, right? If they have 5 or 8 more hours per week to their usage for them to use, and obviously your business is scaling. So as it scales, operations and admin gets a higher kind of like demand on it. Naturally, they will have the ability to do that. So you don't need new admin, higher operational costs to scale your business. You have the capacity in your team. That's the first thing. The second thing is often a company wants to acquire or merge or go into different business ventures and bring that in. And logically speaking, you would think, oh my goodness, I just need new admin, new this. You want to scale your operational team or your administrative team as you scale or buy into new ventures. And it's kind of like linear, and your expenses to get higher margins, it's really a massive pressure at the end of the day. But now when you've got more free time, you can negotiate. You can tell your administrator, listen here, we're going to bring in a new company. I can give you rather a raise and employ someone new or whatever. It's really that operational cost or opportunity cost rather really is within your decision on how you want to use it. So you can reinvest it into your company, you can scale your company, or you can literally just bring in new companies as you grow, keeping your operational expenditures at the same, even lower, and then scale into new business ventures. That's the ideal that you want to have. So don't only look at this as an actual cost saving, however that is there, but there's also opportunity costs. And from the opportunity costs, we often make raw assumptions, but that I'll explain and show into the spreadsheet that I've created. But let's look at exactly what this is, because these are the results that I pulled into the financial sheet. I'm not going to recalculate everything, but that I used. I used the metrics that we used. We used the baseline versus the actual differences, and we used that against a assumed salary and hourly rate and everything like that. And I'll show that now to get to an actual saving or an actual opportunity cost saving that is there, because we know the hours that was saved and we know that the time was being saved. So just look at this massive impact that this MVP had on this specific client. So the first one is active software subscriptions. We see that there's a change of, 8 less software subscriptions that the client is using to gain the same and better results. We see that their monthly software spend dropped from 18,400 to 7,900 Rand a month. That's 120,000 Rand a year saving just on that. Their admin hours per week on a manager's point of view went from 22 hours to 14 admin hours per week, opportunity costing on time. Their month-end closes went from 9 days to 5 days. Financial reconciliation per cycle went from 26 hours to now 14 hours. This is 4 months in. This isn't even the MVP at full scale. This is 4 months in. Management pack build time went from 11 hours to 2.5 hours. Double capture events per week. There used to be 31. There's now only 7. Decision latency. We use 10 track questions on how decisions are made from an operational or business point of view. 2.3 days versus 40 minutes. Now, just pause that, because if you're looking into something like an MVP, surely you are a manager or an executive or a director in a company. Now, imagine someone presents an opportunity within the team to you, or problem or solution, and a lot of the time you make calculative risk assumptions or decisions, right? You need a lot of data, you need a lot of things. But because the system has all the data and AI and predictive analytics built into it, now a decision that used to have 2.3 days now only takes 40 minutes to come to the same type of conclusion, and even a better, safer conclusion. Now just think about that small one, because you might think 2.5 days versus 40 minutes. How I see that is a compounding effect as businesses really just move faster in terms of their finances, operations, decision-making, and responsibility and accountability, which is massive. Then we looked at the block to buy trace response. We captured that. It used to be 2 days. It's now 6 minutes. Payroll processing per cycle, which used to be 7.5 hours, is now, we brought it down to 3 hours. Payroll corrections per cycle, 6 versus 1. Task completion rate used to be 61%. Now we're at 74%. Weekly active adoption, meaning how everything is adopted. That is something that they didn't measure in the past. We're measuring it now. So we see that 78% of the team is actually adopting into the actively into any decision making. We looked at the staff pulse from 1 to 10. It used to be 5.8, which is not bad actually. But we brought that up to 7.1, a 22% difference in 4 months. What else was there? The after hours work per week, that's 9.5 hours per week of overtime. Across the board, on average, we brought that down to 5 hours. Just think about what your time and the cost to time is worth in your company. The time to morning situational awareness used to be 45 minutes. This is literally where a CEO, director, manager is, brought up to speed about what's happening for the day, because the system is now consolidating all data, all communications, triaging all emails and communications into one place. That now is 6 minutes, right? Unplanned machine downtime for this client used to be 41 hours. We now have brought that down to 33 hours because we've got predictive analytics, remote monitoring, ITOs built into one system that actually can predict a lot of the downtime. So obviously that will be one thing that we were trying to push to as close as 0, but a lot of things are not in the system's hand. But still, just by implementing that, we already see a 20% change. This is something that I just want to read from the client. And it says the following: the subscriptions were the part I could see immediately. The part I didn't expect was the month end. We used to lose the first week of every month rebuilding numbers. Now the pack is on my desk in an afternoon, and I spent that week on the blocks instead. That is the testimony from the client using FarmOS after month 4. Then we can look at I'm quickly just going to go through the cattle OS, but obviously we didn't do the financial model on that. That's we measured the stock count variance at reconciliation. It used to be 11. We brought that down to 0. Time to complete a full stock count used to be 3 days. It's a very complex, large scale. Now it takes 4 hours. Herd reconciliation per month used to take 9 hours. It's now 1.5 hours. Days from loss to detection, they usually only did that at an annual count. Now they can do that in 6 days. Time to produce a full animal history Used to take a half day with all the collective data. Now it's 2 minutes. Treatment and vaccination compliance used to be 71%. It's now 96%. Withdrawal period violations, it's in the prior year. It's up to 0 now. This is only 2 months in, but still immediately we picked it up. Auction record preparation, when they, obviously prepared for auctions, it used to be a 2-day full on board team. Now it takes them 25 minutes. The feed and lick cost per head per day, we managed to bring that down with our predictive financial analyzer, swarm into the system. So it was 11 Rand 14, now it's 10 Rand 70. It's a 6% change, but really that compounds at their scale. Water and pump incidents caught before stock affected. In the past, they were not able to do that. Now we did 3 that we prevented. Time chasing information per week used to be 8 hours is a typical of calling someone, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this invoice, I need this, I need this. Now, obviously, that 8 hours is down to 3, but we're taking that 3 down to 0. That's kind of like the purpose of this MVP. Weekly active adoption on herdsmen, 4 out of 5, which was something that didn't happen in the past. And then the average daily gain visibility was not measured in the past, but now we can measure it effectively and we measured it at 0.68 kgs per day. And this is something, once again, a testimony from the client of ours that says, the count is what sold me. We found 11 head unaccounted for in the first reconciliation, something we'd never have picked up before the annual count. 2 months in, the book and the kraal finally agree, and I can pull an animal's whole history on my phone at the auction. So that was something that we asked them what stood out for you with your experience on the MVP, and that's actually what stood out. So let's just look at a couple of last minute things before I jump into the other thing. And just this is some of the survey results, their words that brought from experiencing the MVP. Sorry, I'm obviously in between a lot of meetings, but I just wanted to showcase this. The first one is, I stopped renting 14 systems that didn't speak to each other and started owning one. This is this one that does. The subscription saving alone pays a meaningful part of the build every year. And at the end of it, I own the asset instead of a stack of renewal invoices. The next one said, I've got roughly 8 hours a week back, and the evenings are quieter. The first week of every month used to disappear into reporting. Last month, I took 4 days off and nothing fell over. That has never happened before. Then the last one that I want to read is, the difference isn't that I have more information. It's that I have it when the decision is in front of me. Not 2 days later, my manager stopped compiling reports and started making calls. That's the change. So, yeah, we said here the best measure isn't percentage. It's that the operation runs without them in the middle of it. So that's something that is important to us. So I just want to go ahead and move into the financial reporting here. So remember those metrics that we measured inside, I want to say inside the Farm OS. So I'm going to take those exact metrics, so it's the actual metrics, and I'm going to make a couple of assumptions just to give you an idea about the effectivity of an MVP. So obviously it needs to save time, it needs to have solve problems, but it needs to be something that's worth scaling for the company. So the assumptions that are made here, and now you can use your own assumptions. You can take and say, listen, if those are the results, what effect it's going to have on my company? So maybe just follow along in this exercise and in your mind or on a notepad, enter the actual salary. We just looked at 3 different types of positions in a company. We made an industry assumption. So if these type of salaries are lower in your company, the effect might be percentage-wise the same, but it might be a bit lower. If it's greater than this, then the good bad news is you're losing actually way more money than this will actually show you. Plus, we worked this at a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning when we looked at manager, we looked at 1 manager's time, not 5 or 10 or 12 managers' time. We worked it out very comprehensively. So when a manager saved 8 hours time, based on the first example, we literally just took 1 manager's time saving, and we brought that in. So if that time is saved by 10 managers, it should actually be times 10. But there are certain things that, yes, we work on assumptions, but what we want to work on is very conservative saving to just show people by bringing in the relevant tech into your company, building your own solution to solve your own problems. This is the baseline effect that it will carry through. So we looked at an administrator, and we assumed a monthly salary of 25,000 Rand, a manager 40,000 Rand, and a director or owner at 50,000 Rand. The regular work hours per week, we said an admin, we're capping at 40 hours. A manager, we know sometimes works behind the scenes, so we capped that at 50 hours, and a director at 60 hours, right? That can be more, that can be less. Once again, just follow along on the assumptions. We then just looked at a rate per week because a lot of those metrics were weekly saved. We looked at a rate per day because a lot of those things were daily saved, and then obviously a rate per hour because a lot of those things were mentioned, like 2-hour gain, 3-hour gain, and everything. Now, we're looking at something that is obviously influenced by, how can I say it, either a direct cost, meaning especially with the software subscriptions, that's a known cost. The other ones are assumed costs based on opportunity costing. So you might think to yourself, okay, this is not actually going to be a saving on books, but this is still a cost to company from an OPEX point of view, an operational point of view, an operational expenditure point of view. Now, before I go into the model, I need to explain something. Well, actually, let's just pause and go through the first line metrics on FarmOS first. So looking at FarmOS, we're going to look at the active subscriptions, which is a direct saving, and then obviously an opportunity costing. Why? Because that money can be used better elsewhere, or it can be just a direct saving of the company. So monthly, this company saved on their software spend, they saved 10,500 Rand, which equates to 126,000 Rand annually, or 378 for 3 years, 630,000 Rand for 5 years. And in 10 years' time, it would have saved them 1.2 million because this system is once off, right? There's no monthly subscriptions to it. The other thing that I want to mention is, yes, you can assume both things. You can assume that tech becomes cheaper in the future, or that subscriptions, because most SaaS subscriptions actually has an annual increase, this can come better. I didn't bring into consideration or calculation that it gets annually increased. So the 10-year figure can easily be 3 million, 4 million, whatever. We just worked on the baseline. Then we looked at the admin hours per week from a manager. Remember, those were the metrics. It's the same. All these metrics were the same ones in the folder that we showed. And that animal or admin hours per week, this is an assumed saving because obviously it doesn't mean that they don't need to pay for that manager. It just means that that's what the time is worth. So depending on the company, their scaling, their business operations, it's not necessarily going to be a direct saving. Some of these are, and then we flag it as direct saving. Some of them are assumed saving because of the salary commitments, everything like that. We don't have the data, and some of them are flagged as an opportunity costing saving. So I think you get the gist of it. But admin hours per week, that's worth 6,400. That's on one manager, which equates to 76,000 per year. 230 for 3 years, 384 and 768. Once again, without inflation, without any increases, anything like that. Then we looked at the month-end close. The month-end close, once again, is assumed savings. Those are the saving lines there, 4,000 Rand per month. We looked at the financial reconciliation per cycle. That's once again an assumed saving. So want to be very clear on that, which is 761. It might sound small, but everything like this compounds. We looked at the management pack build time, which is a direct saving, first of all, and then an opportunity costing, which is 6,500 Rand per month. We looked at the double capture events per week. That's an opportunity costing and then secondary and assumed saving of 15,000 Rand or 14,000 Rand per month. Once again, this is linked to the actual data, but based on assumptive or assumption salaries and cost but also based on one person and not, the entire team. So this can go either way, but I think you catch the drift with that. The decision latency, this is something that's very important to me. I don't even look at the opportunity costs. For me in a business, if someone can make calculative, good decisions faster, that's how a company grows and scales. That's how you filter out everything. So I don't even care. This could have been 0, but just the fact that this had that major impact on that alone proves to me the valuable time for an MVP on an executive or board or investors. If your company works with investors, this is what pushes up their ROI every single time. And then we've got the block to buyer trace response, which we didn't measure in response. We don't, because it fluctuates too more between businesses. Yours might have a direct opportunity costing, assumed saving, or anything like that. We looked at the payroll processing per cycle. Once again, assumed saving and opportunity costing, we calculated that as 2,000 Rand. Things that we didn't now calculate but has an opportunity or direct saving is obviously the payroll corrections per cycle, because we don't know, them not doing that might be a result of them saving time elsewhere or spending it elsewhere to decrease that time. So it will be kind of like hypocritical to double measure that, and we don't want to inflate the savings just for the sake of it. We really want to be factual, even with assumptive data. The task completion rate was the same reasoning. The weekly active adoption was the same. The staff pulse was the same. But the after hours work per week, this is once again so how we calculated this is on the administrator, on the manager, on the director, but 1-1-1 ratio. That's 42,500 or 100 Rand direct, because they don't need to pay that overtime. They don't need to spend it. Which is a lot of money. And then the last 3, for the same reasons that we didn't calculate, that we do have the data, but we don't want to double calculate, is the time to morning solutional awareness. This just helps managers and key people in a business to actually get to their job faster with more accurate data. So that compounds to the effect why other results might be smoother, right? So we don't want to double down on that. The unplanned machine downtime, you know what that means in your business. We didn't measure that. And the yield forecast accuracy kg per hectare. But this is what I want to show you. Just from that, just from the things that we measured on actual metrics, actual results from their system, the only thing that we did is we assumed salaries, but we did it with a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning 1 administrator, 1 manager, 1 director, where we all know if it's 4 managers, 4 admin, 5 directors, this is times 4, times 5. But just on that, their monthly save currently, with 4 months into adoption, is currently at 90,000 Rand savings per month on the same operations. This is from their operational expenditure only. Annually, they're saving 1.1 million Rand. 3 years, it would be 3.3, 5 years, 5.3, and 10 years, 10 million Rand. From an OPEX point of view, just based on their current, business operations, without even taking into consideration scaling effect and margins increase, if you want to put it like that. Now, there's a couple of things that I just want to show you, because you might think, okay, so you might think that in this scenario, in this situation, it's cool, but at what size are they at? Now, I know kind of like their revenue industry. I'm not going to talk about their margins, but I just want to give you an idea of the size of operations. So this company's size of operations is at 75 million revenue per year. Now, this is where it gets really, I think, the reckless, irresponsible part that I mentioned early on. This is what I'm referring to, right? It will be super irresponsible for me to say that there is a direct correlation between OPEX, which is operational expenditure, and obviously with revenue, right? OPEX does not scale linear to revenue growth, okay? However, this is not revenue growth. This is separate positioning. So I'm not going to use the example and saying this company would scale from 75 million to a billion, it's not the scale that I'm going to show you here. It's just different positioning. So let's assume the company is in a 75 million position, or let's assume your company is in a 3 million revenue position. How that same operational expenditures, because one thing is true, however, larger operations tend to have, in comparison to smaller operations, a linear growth at an operational expenditure point of view, especially with staff costs. Let me give you an example. If my company in a specific industry does whatever, 10 million Rand a year, and I have 1 people to do it, and I scale, the operations to bring it to 20, I usually need 2 people, right? That's the linear scale that I want to say. So the operational expenditures that we do have in here are not things that's fixed, that doesn't scale linear with it. It's not things like your rent. It's not things like your insurance, your vehicles. It's directly staff expenditures. So that's why I said it's a reckless example if I just take OPEX and it's full, because it doesn't scale linear with it. Whereas I'm not taking OPEX at its full. I'm taking certain parts of OPEX that has a measurable metric, and that is the staff costs, and it's on a 1-to-1 ratio. So I do want to say that this is not the entire OPEX. These are actually the majority of expenses, mostly linear with revenue and operational scaling, right? And just to conclude to that, I want to explain something. Operating expenses, or OPEX, generally scale slower than revenue growth. And this phenomenon is known as operating leverage. The core scaling relationship, revenue grows faster than OPEX. In a healthy scaling business, every 10% increase in revenue should ideally require less than a 10% increase in OPEX, right? Operating margin expands because expenses grow at a slower rate than sales, and the company's profit margins widen as it grows. So how different OPEX components actually scale? OPEX is not uniform. Different categories scale at different rates. We look at fixed costs, which they scale very well. These are those type of things. These are expenses like rent, insurance, and core administrative software remain flat or grow very little as sales increase. But then we have general and administrative, your G&A. That's how they scale well is executive salaries, HR and accounting costs scale slowly. You do not need to double your HR team just because you doubled your sales. However, in this example, it's not a company scaling, it's different positioning in company. So that's why we use that assumptive task. One needs to consider the R&D, the research and development. Product development requires heavy upfront investment. Once a product is built, R&D is a percentage of revenue that typically drops through absolute spending, or rather absolute spending should or may still grow to fund the innovation. Then we've got your S&M, your sales and marketing. That's something that definitely scales linear. It scales closest to revenue growth. Bringing in more customers usually requires a proportional increase in advertising spend and sales commission. So there are a couple of stages of OPEX scaling. I don't want to just mention everything here, but you've got the early stage, which is your subscale. OPEX grows faster than revenue, right? This is usually before we adopt new innovation or tech like this. The company is investing heavily in building infrastructure, hiring core teams, and acquiring initial customers before the revenue kicks in. Then we get your growth stage, which is your high leverage. This revenue grows significantly faster than OPEX. The company leverages its existing infrastructure to handle more volume without adding equal cost. And then obviously your mature stage, that's a stabilizer, where OPEX and revenue grow at a similar predictable rates. The business has optimized its efficiency and grows in line with the market demand. So that's your kind of like lecture on how OPEX usually scales, if you didn't know that. So I know those type of things, and I excluded that just because we're not scaling the company here, we're using different positioning. But let me paint the final picture with you. So this company is set at 75 million a year. The percentage or these savings are linked to that. If this OPEX doesn't scale but increases based on the positioning, we could assume a 100 million Rand revenue company there's a 33% change in that baseline cost. 150 million, 200, 300. So you can just place yourself in this positioning. And if you lower, just decrease that, I'll give you the same benefit of the doubt, I guess. But I mean, the manager's salary is the manager's salary. But if you are a 300 million rand company or a billion rand company, you won't be necessarily targeting to save 90,000 rand, but 360,000 rand a month, or 50 million to 150 million rand in a 10-year period, just by adopting the right MVP into your business. Guys, this is why people adopt AI, adopt efficiency, adopt these type of technology. This is even I'm so excited when I mentioned this even excludes things like your crop efficiency, which will bring you more margins in, your timing efficiency, your predictive analytics, your logistics management, because this MVP still solves those problems. This is just on a salary cost point of view. Not adopting AI and tech or MVP is literally, as you see here, costing you a lot of money. The longer you wait, the more you're losing out. Plus, you are still stuck in the same sequence of not buying back your time and not solving your business problems. So there's a cost, actual cost here, but then there's also the time and productivity that needs to be there. And then one need to be reminded, I would say, or need to remind yourself on the last element of opportunity costing. There's actual cost, yes, but your business cannot scale, cannot grow, or will at a very high operational risk point of view and expenditure point of view. That OPEX will just, climb like that. Get the right MVP in place. That's the testimonials. This is the results. This is the metrics. The longer you wait, literally every single day, it's costing you money. It's not solving your time freeing. It's not saving your profitability. It's not saving your business problems or anything like that. Get that in place. So if you have a company or you want to know how an MVP can change your life, we've got a basic questionnaire, one discovery call. We'll take it from there and we'll just gladly assist you with anything that you can. But take this from our clients' testimonies and the metrics that we run, and just imagine yourself in that position. And this is the power of tech, AI, MVP your own solution, not hiring other people's solution, and actually managing a business from one dashboard. This is the effect that it has. Thank you so much for joining.